to the German language distance learning program for beginners. This is a joint program conducted by the Indira Gandhi National Open University in collaboration with Max Müller Bhavan, the German Cultural Center in India. Herzlich willkommen zum Fernkurs Deutsch als Fremdsprache für Anfänger. Ein gemeinsames Programm zwischen der Indira Gandhi National Open University und dem Goethe-Institut Max Müller Bhavan, dem Deutschen Kulturzentrum in Indien.
You're listening to Radio D, the radio language course of Redaktion D. A joint project of the Goethe Institute and Deutsche Welle Radio. The author is Herat Mese.
And a warm welcome to episode 7 of your German language course, Radio D. Our two reporters, Paula and Philip, have been looking into the mystery surrounding the death of the Bavarian king, Ludwig II. This time they want to tell us about his life, but unfortunately they haven't actually reported in yet.
Stimmt nicht. Hier sind 3 neue Minidiscs von Paula und Philipp.
What? 3 new mini-discs? Let's play them right away for our listeners.
Hallo, liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer.
Willkommen
bei Radio D.
Radio D.
Das Hörspiel.
As you already know, King Ludwig II lived in the 19th century. He was a melancholic man who loved to be driven through the lonely forests at night, in winter in a sleigh. Imagine a night with a full moon and mountains covered in snow, and listen to what it was King Ludwig loved so much.
Ruhig. Ruhig. Der König kommt gleich. Achtung, der König kommt. Ja! Los geht's!
Na, wie schön. Das ist wunderschön. Ich liebe die Natur. Und ich liebe die Musik. Musik von Richard Wagner.
It was music King Ludwig loved so much, especially that of his friend Richard Wagner.
Und ich liebe die Musik. Musik von Richard Wagner.
A sleigh ride. It's like an image from a fairy tale, don't you think? That's one of the reasons why they called Ludwig the Fairytale King. You know, you can still take a sleigh ride like that now, though it might not be quite as romantic as you expect, because it's pretty cold and you drive on the roads. It was better for King Ludwig. He was snuggled up inside a thick fur and could enjoy the nature he loved so much and dream of the music of his friend Richard Wagner.
Na, wie schön. Das ist wunderschön. Ich liebe die Natur. Und ich liebe die Musik. Musik von Richard Wagner.
But in his youth, when King Ludwig wasn't quite as lonely as he was in adulthood, and also not quite as off his rocker, as you might say, he celebrated wild parties in his palaces, with dancing and music and colourful lights. And as often as possible, he sought the company of his cousin, Sissi, to whom he had a romantic attachment all his life. Try and imagine a royal feast. What might King Ludwig ask of Sissi?
Sissi, tanzen wir.
Ja, gern, Ludwig. Gern.
Entschuldigung, Majestät?
Später, später. Kommen Sie, Sissi, wir tanzen.
King Ludwig asks the beautiful Sissi, the later Empress of Austria, to dance.
Sissi, tanzen wir. Kommen Sie, Sissi, wir tanzen.
And he wants no one to disturb them, because Sissi enjoys dancing with him, and it would be discourteous to keep her waiting.
Sissi, tanzen wir.
Ja, gern, Ludwig. Gern.
And when King Ludwig wanted to be quite alone with Sissi, he'd invite her to dinner in one of his palaces. Now you're probably wondering how one could be alone for dinner in such a big palace. Well, at his Linderhof palace, the king had a special table device built, and when Sissi sees it for the first time, she's quite amazed. Can you imagine what kind of construction this table, Tisch, might be?
Essen und kein Tisch? Wie geht das, liebster Ludwig? Wo ist der Tisch?
Moment, Moment.
Was ist denn das?
Ein Tisch, liebe Sissi?
Das sehe ich, aber woher kommt der Tisch?
Von unten.
Von unten?
Ja, schauen Sie mal. Jetzt ist er weg. Ich klingele, der Tisch kommt. Ich klingele, der Tisch verschwindet.
Und wie geht das?
Das ist eine besondere Konstruktion.
Maybe you've seen in the theatre how people or things are lowered out of sight, and that's the kind of machinery King Ludwig had built for himself. But back to Sissi. Having been invited to dinner, she's understandably quite surprised to see no table when she enters the dining hall in Linderhof Palace.
Essen und kein Tisch? Wie geht das, liebster Ludwig? Wo ist der Tisch?
Well, recognizing a table is not that hard, so when Sissi asks, "What's that?" she gets the bemused reply from the king, "A table."
denn das?
Ein Tisch, liebe Sissi?
It's not the table as such she means, of course. She wants to know where it's come from so suddenly. The answer, from below, isn't really much of an explanation.
Das sehe ich, aber woher kommt der Tisch?
Von unten.
So as not to have so many servants hovering around him and his dinner guests, Ludwig ordered a special construction built. On the ground floor was the kitchen. The table was laid there. Then the king rang a bell, and the laid table was raised up through a trap door in the floor of the dining room.
Ich klingele. Der Tisch kommt.
And when dinner was over, King Ludwig rang again, and the table was lowered back to the kitchen. It simply disappeared.
Ich klingele. Der Tisch kommt. Ich klingele. Der Tisch verschwindet.
When she asks how that works, Sissy gets only the general explanation that this is a special construction, which she has no doubt figured out for herself.
Und wie geht das?
Das ist eine besondere Konstruktion.
Maybe the king didn't know any more about such a complex bit of technology either. We just don't know. And it was at that table that Paula and Philip met the man wearing Ludwig's mantle and claiming to be the king. Let's try again to get in touch with them. Hallo? Hallo Philipp? Paula? Do you hear me?
Ja, da sind wir wieder. Noch einen Moment bitte.
Ah, you heard them. You'll have to wait a little longer, I'm afraid. Well, we'll use the time to talk to our professor, shall we?
Und nun kommt unser Professor.
Radio D.
Gespräch über Sprache.
What are we dealing with this time?
We're going to look some more at verbs. There's any amount to say about them. Listen to the verbs again in the infinitive form. For example, to come, kommen, and to love, lieben.
Kommen. Lieben.
But our listeners already know that verbs change their form.
Right. More precisely, the endings attached to the roots of verbs change. First, hear the verb root, and then the infinitive with the ending en, n.
Komm.
Kommen.
Lieb.
Lieben.
Now you know the ending of the infinitive, en, spoken n. What other endings do you hear in the following example?
Kommt. Liebt.
Well, I heard a t.
Perfect. Instead of en, sounding n at the end of the verb, there's a t if one talks about a person, for example, King Ludwig.
Der König kommt gleich. Achtung, der König kommt.
And if one's talking about oneself, that is, in the I form,
then the verb ending also changes. Which ending do you hear in the following example?
Liebe. Ich liebe.
Ich liebe die Natur.
when ich, that is, I, is used, the ending has to be e.
Yes, that's right. Most of the time, anyway.
And next time we meet, you'll hear how the conversation between our reporters and the man who claimed to be King Ludwig continued after it was unfortunately interrupted. See you then.
Liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer, bis zum nächsten Mal.
You've been listening to Radio D, a German course of the Goethe Institute and Deutsche Welle Radio.
Besten Dank, dass Sie unseren Deutschkurs für Anfänger eingeschaltet haben. Detaillierte Informationen über den Kurs bekommen Sie im Studienzentrum, Regionalzentrum und im Max-Müller-Pavillon. Thank you for tuning in to our German language program for beginners. Detailed information regarding this program is available at your study center, regional center and at the Maxmiller Bhavan.